So you might be in the market for a Paper Pro, which we've already covered, but they still sell the Remarkable 2, which kind of looks better because of the weird layer they put on top of the Paper Pro and ended up just kind of being diluted and didn't really harness the full potential of Gallery 3. But if you wanted to know how they stack up next to each other, because they are both still in the Remarkable lineup, let's take a look back. Thank you all for joining today. This is going to be more of a candid off-script video as we look at the Remarkable 2 and the Paper Pro. These are these two guys next to each other. We have to just check a few things. We're going to be checking note-taking, ebooks, and then the build. Reason being, there's nothing much that these guys can do outside of that. There's no multimedia, there's no apps, there's no audio, there's nothing. So it really is just a one or two trick pony. Let's get into it. Before we start the battle, we need to weigh these guys in. This is the Remarkable 2, coming in at 407 grams. The Remarkable Paper Pro comes in at 522 grams, significantly heavier. Interestingly enough, although Remarkable pioneered this side ledger that everyone in the industry has copied, I'm talking everybody, even RLCDs, even Onyx, even bigme, even just everybody, they actually didn't have that on this one. And interestingly enough, have gone with more of a standing V-Woods design. So it's interesting how everything comes full circle, because this is more evident of the Remarkable 1 with those 3 buttons at the bottom. Either way, there's something else we need to go over. There's 2 things we need to go over, actually, before we continue. Look at the differences in the whiteness. We covered this in our review, but check it out. This is going to be significantly more white than that. This is the same shot. This is not the problem of Remarkable. You can see very well here, if we put a V-Woods into frame, this is even whiter than that. So with Gallery, with Kaleido, with color technology in general, you get a grayer experience. That's just, it comes with the territory. The second thing is that, as we covered in a few videos, heavy sigh. Unfortunately, the Remarkable Marker Plus doesn't work on anything else. You might find some cross compatibility with some laptop out there, maybe a Fujitsu touchscreen computer. However, in terms of a general sense, this doesn't work on the Scribe, it doesn't work on the Remarkable 2, it doesn't work on anything. So you're gonna have to account for that, because if you buy this pen, which it's not cheap, it is expensive, you can only use it on this, and you can't use any of the previous tips that even Remarkable use in Kindle Scribe and iFlyTech and bigme and Onyx. All the tips that we know and love, these graphite composite tips, you have to use the new plastic kind of conical tips that Remarkable gives you, and they're not free because they come in a separate kind of canister like this. They're not dime a dozen tips that you can just swap in and out. So with those out of the way, let's dive in. You guys are also going to have to deal with the fact that Gallery refreshes a lot and very poorly. It doesn't look good. When you go out of a screen and you go back into it, everything haphazardly flashes all over the place. The screen turns green and light lime yellow, and it just looks awful. Sometimes you get these weird red bursts across the screen, and that is necessary to create the image that you are going to see. When it comes to the overall visibility of it, if you guys are new to these kind of e-notes / e-readers, they are incredibly different in terms of what they are supposed to be. This is a black and white device, so it's going to look like that. This is color, so it's going to look like this. And you know what? This is not meant to replace this. They kind of exist alongside each other, because this can't replace this. They deviated too far away from their core makeup material. They went from black and white to now a color Gallery 3 advanced color e-paper unit that has heavy refresh and is fairly slow. So they've really gone outside the box to make this unit, and it is a super high risk that they're owning, and that's totally fine, but it is just so inherently different that what made the Remarkable 2 the Remarkable 2. But I digress. Let's look at the home screen. Neither of these technically have a home screen. There's some consistent elements on the top and on the side, but they don't really have a home screen. It's just going to be whatever you click on, and it is pretty similar, honestly, all things considered. Even if you go to the settings, they'll be pretty much the same across the board. You have Wi-Fi, battery, storage, and you have some security elements and some accessibility elements, but they're pretty much just skinned the exact same. They just look a little bit different. Now, what we want to get into and get it out of the way is ebooks. This is not technically an ebook reader, although one of the 3 things you choose are ebooks. So let's just see what we can see. You can write over the entire page. Oh, this is going to be actually a little bit annoying. I got to use 2 pens. But guess what? Is Peter ambidextrous? Oh, no, he's not. So I'm going to write very poorly with my left hand here. But you can make notes on both of these, and you can say, you know what, Jonathan, thank you for submitting your paper, but that segment needs work. And you know what? This one is good all around. From there, what you can do is go to here and send by email. Yes, they both have it. You can send by email here. You can send by email here. So you can make your signatures. You can sign your tax forms. You can sign things that need to be signed instead of using DocuSign, all on here, and then email directly over to your boss, to your loved ones, whatever. You can choose from a bevy of options like PDF, PNG, SVG, etc. So there's lots of options you can do there. Watch our full review if you want to see both of those. But how are these different when it comes to ebook reading? Well, let's just do some light refreshes as if we're reading the books. So on this one, you see there's a fair amount of ghosting, and you do get that kind of dither effect with a ton of artifacting. You can see the previous page is still there, even though it's not there. You have to then turn the page for it to kind of kick in. But this does have something the Remarkable 2 can never do, which is going to be highlighting. You have gray, pink, blue, green, orange, and yellow, and these colors are going to be different depending on the pen you choose. And how this is good is that even if you draw a pretty non-straight line, it's going to kick it into a completely straight line. This is very useful when you're in your educational environment that you're trying to highlight things like that. You can go off script and you can choose something like a ballpoint and just go to town on it like that without the worry of it conforming your lines. You do have that rough ability on here. You can use the highlighter like so, and it will do the same thing. However, obviously the elephant in the room, not so elephant in the room, is that there's no color. So you can get some shades of gray if you go to, for example, the marker will have red, blue, and gray. And these will be different shades of gray on the screen, and then when you export, that will be red, and then the other one will be blue, etc. But you never really know which one's which at any given time unless you have some sort of indicator next to it, and you know that that's going to be red because you're used to it at that point. So moving on from that is note-taking. Yes, you do get the same palette on the side, but we're not going to use that because we're going to go to an actual note on both of these, and then we will be able to get a clean page, and then we'll take some notes. The feel of it all. It's not really a contest anymore. Remarkable's always kind of hovered around the 3rd to 5th position of the best note-taking feel in terms of the Remarkable Deuce. However, things have changed in recent times that this is now almost the best you can get. I still believe, and it is a very great consensus, that the Linfini shell with the Sony DPT, the Fujitsu Quaderno, is just so good. They could have had it on this if they used more of a graphite-y tip, but they did not. They went with a plasticky tip. So although it's pretty close to realistic, you do still get a lot of that digital undertones of you using a digital pen on a digital device. Obviously you are. I understand that. But what I'm saying is you lack that last step of realism, that just one more step ahead could have got you to an absolutely unparalleled level. However, there is one thing they absolutely nailed: the eraser. For the longest time, the Staedtler Norris Digital Jumbo had the best eraser in the game. This kills that eraser. This eraser is so good and so accurate and so real that I cannot think of a better eraser. Out of all the 100 plus pens we've used, this is absolutely phenomenal. The only thing I wish it did was erase live instead of giving you a indication of what will go away. I'm not a big fan of that. I like almost the realism of the live erase, which not all manufacturers give you, but some of them do. This one doesn't, unfortunately, on the Remarkable 2 either, although when it goes away, it renders quite well, I suppose. Although both of these kind of suffer from a little bit of artifacting and a little bit more on the Gallery 3 screen. And that's just the It's the inherent nature of e-paper. And just to show you guys, if you haven't watched our tests, the Remarkable pen will not work on there. It only works on there. And as a reverse control, as we've done already, that will work there and it won't work there. We're not going to go over what these guys can do in terms of what the note-taking experience is like, because we've already covered that countless times. But what we will show you is what it would look like if you guys are using quote-unquote colors. So if you had a black splotch right here, and then you wanted to add the only other color you have, which is gray, how do these guys overlap? How does it look like? Now, when you're drawing, you get a pretty consistent color fill-in, except for the overlap of where you're supposed to overlap. Now, when you let go, it's going to render and it'll be a clean line. And much the same on this unit, which we will choose the paintbrush and a wide brush, and then we'll do some colors. The gallery is quite nice. You know, when you're drawing, it almost looks like paint, which is cool, until it renders and it goes away and becomes a full color. And that's what you wanted anyways, but I would have liked to see them maybe keep one of the pens to give you a little bit more bleed and a little bit more paint-like feel. And this is the paintbrush, so this is the one that would have been the culprit to do it. Now, when you overlap everything, you'll look at how beautiful and how isolated the lines are with each other, and it doesn't blend, which is really nice. It blends while you're drawing, but then once you let go, you get this absolutely beautiful side-by-side with these concise borders. It looks so good, and it looks so real. Now, one of the last things we want to show you guys is the tilt function when it comes to the pencil. This is the most exciting part of it all, honestly. The tilt is so good. If you draw normally, you get just a regular pencil line, and then you hold it on the side, and look at that. You get this dusting that no other device has as good as dusting as this. You would think. Till you get over to this guy. When you're drawing on this, it's almost as if you might as well be using an actual colored pencil. If you flick your pencil, if it wasn't for the gallery screen, that would be the quickest in the game and the most realistic. Look at that. Look at the consistency from how I pressed down there over to when it was thicker. And this dusting on the side of the pen, the angle is ridiculously extreme. Not only can you do the angle to increase the width of the actual line, you can press down whilst doing that. Look how gorgeous that is. This makes me want to draw things, and I can't draw to save my life, but the pressure sensitivity, the control of the pressure sensitivity, you have a lot available with you, and it feels like for the first time in a long time, they've allowed you to harness it. It really does feel like you have the ability to control this to the nth degree, and it is phenomenal the way it feels on the page. If they really just gave you a choice of tips, which they can in the future, if they add different materials of tips, maybe something with a little bit more graphite, maybe something like a palm tip, just to give you some variation, they could really open the doors with what this can do and thoroughly change the feel, the true feel of what this is going to be like. Now, the last thing we want to talk about is price, because this was cheap, kind of, and competitive in its time. This is not cheap. This is incredibly expensive. The Remarkable 2 ranges from about $400 to $600, $629 with the Type Folio full package. The Paper Pro is very expensive. It goes from $580 to $1,100 USD, depending on your market. This is one of the most expensive devices in the entire industry. Less a Ricoh $4,000 whiteboard, a $3,000 Sharp e-poster, and some monitors. But something that you can tangibly purchase and have a pen and put it in a case and carry it around. It's a very unrealistic price for this unit, and that's an objective fact. To say I want to buy into this, I mean, that's a ton of money for some people to say, oh, I need a keyboard and maybe the black pen. Well, that's $1,100. You can buy cars for that much money. So you do have to look at this as a huge investment. And not only that, the pens you get, you can't use on anything else, and you do need to charge it. You can't just use them freely like this forever. You need to actually snap this to the side of the unit, like so, and then it will charge via a charging light right there, as you see the icon right there. Now, it's not up to me to tell you which one is better, because you kind of can't say which one is better. They didn't make a Remarkable 3 in the sense that they're making another black and white eNote that outclasses this. These are no longer in the same class. This is not going to be the same as this. You can't really draw those parallels. And I understand the price tag's higher because of gallery. We made our own gallery. We were the only company to make a gallery unit. Sharp and Pocketbook never ended up releasing theirs, but we did. We know the costs that come with it. But the reality is that that is still a fact, is that this exists and it is expensive. This still exists, and you can shave a couple bucks off by getting a regular pen, and you can get a certified refurbished version. But it is still the fact that it is no longer a price-efficient entry-level unit that was once $349. You can't do that anymore, and that's where we are with that. However, the final thing, you finally get a glow light, which is fantastic because at night you couldn't use this unit before. On the Remarkable 1 and 2, and still some devices to this very day, some RLCDs, the Fujitsu Quaderno, they don't have glow lights. But this one finally does. So if that's enough to tilt the scales in your favor, we really hope that all of our coverage has helped you make a decision between this and other things, and this, which both exist at the same time. That's the game.